In this video today, I'm going to be showing you how to set up and shoot on a plexiglass platform for your next photo shoot. Recently, I had a shoot using a plexiglass platform and we built it from scratch. And throughout our research in developing this build, there wasn't a lot of information online, whether on Google, TikTok, or even YouTube. I'll walk through the actual build of the platform, lighting, the gear I use, and how to create dynamic images. Shooting on a plexiglass platform is a great way to capture a unique perspective, and once you understand the workflow, this will be a powerful tool for you to use on your shoots. We'll start with the setup. I think the first thing that we thought about was how wide we want the platform to be. And in order to capture a big enough frame where we can actually see the full body and not just a portion of it, we felt like the dimensions of 4 foot by 8 foot would be really good. Next is the thickness. We went with a 3/4 inch thickness because after calling around a bunch of plexiglass manufacturers, we found one manufacturer that actually produced plexiglass platforms for runway fashion shoots. And they found that if there's anything less than 3/4 inch, especially in the fashion shows where people are wearing heels, those tend to crack easily. So we went with a minimum of 3/4 inch. So for the height, we went with 4 feet tall. And the reason for this is if you are putting the camera as low as possible, you can shoot on a 24mm focal range and be able to capture the entire body. And that seemed to be like the minimum height that we needed to shoot on. I would recommend if you are able to shoot and make the platform higher, I would definitely do that. That way you have more flexibility on your angles and your positioning. So for the actual frame itself, we use a bunch of 2x4s, and the theory behind this is building it almost like a workbench, like a craftsman's workbench. And the thing is, what we did was we kept the height at that 4 feet tall, so you can measure the height of those legs 4 feet tall. And then for the in-betweens, we would build exactly to the perimeter of the 4x8. So to connect everything, we actually use the metal brackets that they actually use to make those workbenches, and we put it all together, screw it in, and at the bottom you want to make sure you have at least an angled support for each leg to hold up the weight. With our build, we actually calculated that it could hold up a good amount of weight, and for the shoot we actually did end up shooting with 2 people on the platform at once. So another thing that we considered is making this frame mobile as possible. Granted, because we wanted to shoot outside, but we didn't really have like a private space to just leave all of our stuff outside. So what we did was we first built the frame inside, had the plexiglass on standby, and then come day of the shoot, we actually walked the frame outside. Because we built the frame as the same dimensions of the plexiglass, we were able just to put the plexiglass on top. And the cool thing that we did was we actually created these small wooden blocks where we can just screw in on the side of the frame in order to hold the plexiglass in place. And that gave us the freedom to assemble and disassemble the plexiglass frame. The next thing you want to consider is managing your reflections. So what we did is we got a bunch of black tarp and placed it on the inner walls of our frame and on the ground of where we're shooting. So think about it like this. Have you ever placed a napkin or a piece of paper on your dashboard, and when you're driving out, with the sun directly aiming on your glass, you're able to see that piece of paper on the glass? Well, yeah, that is the same idea. And the thing is, because that piece of paper is white, it's able to reflect light. With that in mind, make sure to neg fill everything underneath your plexiglass platform. That also includes any clothing that you wear as well. So if possible, wear all black, because if you are wearing anything white or anything that's lighter, it will show underneath and on the glass itself. To create the best results, you want to make sure the plexiglass is free of any dust and smudges. And what we used was a glass cleaner, like a typical house glass cleaner, and we cleaned off the platform after every look. Shoes are often the biggest culprit of creating smudges, so If that ever happens, just make sure to wipe it in a circular direction. For lighting, it's really essential to make sure your subject and the background are exposed properly. A difficulty that we had was we shot this during the late summer, and during the summer, the sun tends to rise super early, and then also the quality of light changes so fast, especially from 7 a.m. all the way to 11 a.m. As we are scouting where we're shooting, we made sure to check out where the sun was coming from in order to best place the platform. For the video lighting setups, we had access to Aperture 600Ds, and we placed them in a cross configuration where the lights are on opposite sides of each other. I also use a Nova P300. However, if I were to do it next time, I would probably rent out the Aperture 1200Ds, especially if you're going to be working closer to midday. That way, I'm able to expose the sky and my subject properly. So definitely for video, really consider the power output depending on what time of day you're shooting at, especially if you're shooting outside. For photography lighting, we use our ProPhoto D1s, and since these are powerful fixtures, we were able to shoot at any time of the day. We just had to determine the power intensity as time went on. This cross configuration setup that we did actually created a lot of dimensions from light, dark, light across the subject's body, and we were pretty pleased with the look of this. I think something that you want to consider, maybe if you want to try it yourself, is potentially finding a way to light the subject from underneath, in order if you don't really like that super dynamic look. Again, managing reflections is crucial, so make sure you actually have an abundance of negative black cards or flags. Ultimately, you don't want to take people out of the immersion, especially with glares and reflections. So figure out whatever you can to make the cleanest look you can. Like, the whole thing with this look is making it feel like people are floating. For the actual camera setup, I chose to use the Sony FX3, and the thought behind this is because this is a smaller form factor, we're able to get the body of the camera as low as we can. Utilizing a low angle tripod, we were able to actually have the body really close to the ground and able to utilize our 24mm focal length. This was mainly because I wanted to keep the camera parallel to the Plexiglass platform in order to actually create that true underneath feeling and look. This helped created a consistent look with all the outfits. But feel free to move the camera around. You don't have to put it on a tripod, but feel free to capture different angles and perspectives that you feel like would be best. Another thing that you want to consider is using an ND filter on top of your lens or using a CPL in order to control the right exposures and any glares and reflections. And again, this would all be dependent on your actual lighting conditions outside. Next, let's talk about the position of the subject. And because we're shooting underneath, posing is pretty key. 2 super easy poses that you can have your models do is 1, have them stand up and walk around, or 2, have them just lay down flat. Because we're shooting fashion, it's either showing the movement of the actual articles of clothing, or 2, just seeing the entire full look from this perspective. Leg and hand placements can be done here, especially whenever they're laying down, and could be fun, and feel free to experiment making different shapes. Throughout the shoot, just experiment with the different angles, colors, outfits, lighting, anything like that, to create, the dynamic results that you want. With this setup, you're able to create eye-catching, surreal images that are great for any portfolios. I'm super happy that there's actually a video on the internet talking about the build and the setup, and I really can't wait to see what you guys create. So if you guys have any other questions, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. Thanks for watching again, and I'll see you at the next one. Bye!